DCP Player free. Get it now from digital.net.au.
So a couple of questions that I'd like to explore a little bit further. I think it's not just common knowledge, and it's fairly well established that upgrades have proceeded very slowly. That typically, unless the equipment is owned by a larger chain, it tends to stay at whatever version it was until it drops dead and is replaced by another device. So I'd like to talk about what we're missing out on because we are not able to move to simply DCP relatively quickly. And I'd like to talk about what it is that we can try to propose as best practices, or maybe there's homework that we all need to go do to try to figure out how to get to the bottom of this. But it seems like over time, as things move on, we're going to be missing out on more and more stuff. In other words, for example, we have a standard that we're working on right now for metadata, which is supposed to address the gaping holes left behind and attempted valiantly to be filled by the naming convention.
That's the one I was going to mention.
Yeah. So what advantages do you think that we would see, that theater owners would see as a result of moving to a version of software that was able to support this enhanced metadata?
Clarity. Right now we encode a lot of the information of a movie's version details into the annotation text and content title text fields of the digital cinema package. You have 14 characters to work with for the name of your movie. It's a little bit limiting. In addition to that, we have sound field characteristics that get kind of lopped off on the end because of certain display characteristics or character limitations, effectively.
Is it an issue with theaters having a problem locating specifically the print that they want to be able to exhibit?
Absolutely. I mean, we get a lot of calls from theaters where they're looking for the key, or the keys we sent don't work. Ultimately, it turns out they have the screening version of the feature loaded, where the wide release is obviously a different composition playlist, new key, and it's just not clear enough to the users in the theaters to be able to make a determination as to which one they're looking at, because in a lot of cases it's a highly truncated display.
Yeah. So, did I miss something? Were film projectors utterly free of maintenance?
They type of were, because they had projectionists. The reality is, when people ran 35mm film, they had a projectionist there all the time, and when you get to the smaller theatres, often that projectionist was the cinema owner. So what actually happened was daily walking around, threading, listening to bearings going, etc., meant that they would just maintain those things by themselves. I had a client that had a 35mm projector that was originally a hand crank projector that they'd stuck a electric motor on the side of and was working 75 years later. So why do I need to replace this? And you know what? If 35mm was still available today, they wouldn't, and they probably wouldn't. But you can't get 35mm now, so they've all had to move across. So there's been a huge learning curve that's gone on, and the learning curve in the bigger organisations who are used to investing in technology and investing in long-term investments is working out really well. But we've still got a legacy of, for want of a better word, ma and pa cinema owners who are close to retirement, if not at the age of retirement, that don't really want to do anything else with their lives, that are running these businesses, and they're going to be the hardest ones to educate and to inform to get across the line.
They're comfortable with Facebook, but not necessarily upgrading their operating system.
I've met ones that are still struggling with an iPhone, so, yeah.
They put the motor on 30 years ago. Why do they have to upgrade every year?
And remember, the film projectors didn't have the complexity of a KDM to deal with.
Yeah, I would actually further add that the transmission or the change to digital in the movie business is very much like, if anyone was familiar with a car back in the 70s, you had three principles. You had spark, gas, and power, and if any of those three things you could figure out what was going on, you open up a car today and there's computers and you can't even tell what's underneath the hood. It pretty much is perplexing to all but the engineers and mechanics who work on those specific cars.
And have software to actually diagnose and acknowledge what's going wrong.
Yeah, there's nothing more frustrating than a bricked device staring back at you coldly, offering you no reassurance.